Welcome to Abstract Illusions Radio with host Jennifer Hillman. The show explores and reveals the human potential through creativity. So enjoy the show to create a life you love.
Hello, this is Jennifer Hillman, and thank you so much for coming to Abstract Illusion. I am so happy to continue my poetry series with Victoria Erickson, who is probably one of the most heartfelt poets out there these days. I originally saw her on Facebook, and she's done some writing for Rebel Society and various other mutual places, but every time I see her work, I just smile. So she is a writer, she is a healer, she is a beautiful human being. So Victoria Erickson, thank you so much for agreeing to be on air.
Thank you, Jennifer, for the beautiful introduction.
The minute I started reading your stuff, it's like, oh wow, yeah, she's special.
Oh,
And you have your passion for writing definitely comes through.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like anything that really motivates you or inspires you? Do you have any kind of practice, or are you always on?
I think sometimes I have the opposite problem of many writers. I prefer sometimes to exist in the writing world rather than the real world. So I feel like I'm always flowing and I always want to be writing. So I have to remind myself to come back to reality, actually. Yeah, it's a more it's a really blissful world for me, just thinking about everything and writing. So
you feel yourself very connected to everything, or do you are you inspired by nature? Are you inspired by music? Are you inspired by art? Or situations, or is it all of the above?
it's everything. It's pretty much every detail, I think, of day-to-day living. I think often people want to create a lone space to write, or they want to be in a room for a few days without any distractions, or they want to not live kind of they want to scale back on living a little bit to come into the writing. And I think that you have to continue living your life because that's where all the inspiration is, and not find a perfect time and place to write, but rather write as it comes to you. And for me personally, it comes to me through living every day and struggling or feeling any kind of sensation or emotion. Basically, I think writing comes from everything. So,
is there anything with the writing, have you always been this way? Was there any kind of epiphany that suddenly all of a sudden somebody turned on the faucet and you realized you had this beautiful gift of writing?
I've been writing for as long as I can remember. I used to write stories for like my second and third grade classes and share them. I would come up with these fantasy stories about all sorts of things, fairies and miniature people, or I'd write sort of my own little versions of poetry in elementary school. I loved books. I wanted to live in books. And so I've always been really passionate about words for as long as I can remember. And I was never really interested in TV, but more books. So, and then once I hit my probably preteen years, I started journaling heavily, and I wrote basically everything's documented from the time I was maybe 11 to 18 years old, everything.
Wow.
My parents have tons of my old journals and bins in a garage somewhere.
Have you ever looked at them and said, wow, I've really grown as a writer, or wow, that was really a profound moment I wrote?
I really don't look at them. I will eventually, but I don't look at them. Um, in a way, it sometimes you don't want to go back that deep into it because I wrote in such a detail, but eventually I'll look at them.
From experience, it
Yeah.
sometimes is you sit back and you'll just laugh.
Yes, that's probably
Um,
what I do. I'm kind of embarrassed to just read them.
because you'll go through these experiences and you're going, oh wow.
I know. If only I knew then.
Yeah.
Now.
Um, so poetry opened you up at a very, you never were afraid to share your writing? Because that's, I think, an issue with a lot of people when they start out writing is they love to write, but they're afraid to share. And it doesn't seem like you had that fear at all.
I did it in elementary school, but then I really reeled it in the preteen, adolescent years, and in high school, I really didn't share it at all. So it was really more when I was younger that I would be willing to share it.
So, was there anything that happened that really changed your, because early teens, like, 11, 12, 13, that's a really critical time that a lot of people kind of, I know for me, I went way into myself during that time and really started just kind of isolating myself in my imaginary world, and I just wrote.
Yeah.
Um, and I had an event in school that kind of shut me down because of a teacher's reaction to something. Did you
Oh,
have
no.
did you have any kind of teacher who said something or did something that kind of pulled you back, or was it just, it's time for me just to write for me?
I never had that. I think it was more that it became more personal, sort of journaling based rather than stories. So I just reeled it in and wrote for myself. It was sort of a habit, and it was my way of figuring out the world around me.
So did you always keep a journal with you all the time?
I didn't bring it with me. I would take notes throughout the day and then later on journal. But I've always been a note taker and a list maker, and I still to this day take notes every day.
So when you started really journaling, do you feel that that was a really good practice for any poet or writer to have?
Absolutely. Yes. The more you write, the more it flows, the better you get. Absolutely.
Ha-
Hmm.
you sound like you've never had writer's block.
No, I haven't. In fact, for a while in my 20s, I got really angry at writing and I wanted to quit. So I did for 7 years. And because I felt like it was taking away from my life,
Hmm.
because I would spend so much time. And for such a long time, I just wanted to write with my arm. I didn't want to type, but it began to really hurt my wrist after just, I mean, hours every day in my teenage years writing. It started to really get to my arm. So I got mad at it for various reasons and I quit for a while. It was really dramatic. Yeah.
So, how did writing change from you going full force and then you stopped because of physical pain? What was it that you said, yeah, I really need to start writing again?
My younger sister was working for a producer in Los Angeles, and his partner needed someone to write children's books. And she immediately thought of me and was like, you need to get back into writing again. Will you do these? And I was a little hesitant, but I agreed and I ended up writing 15 children's books for him. And I had to rhyme them all, AABB rhyme scheme. And that made me very aware of sort of the more poetic form and sentence structure. And to this day, I have to check myself so I'm not rhyming everything because it became so ingrained.
Well,
And after that, I sort of went into journaling for or journalism for local newspapers and magazines, and then I went into ghost writing for people. Small businesses would hire me to write for them. So I was all sorts of voices for different people.
Now you also do healing work. You're a Reiki master, you're a
Uh-huh.
massage therapist. Um, do you think they balance each other out, or do you think they kind of married to each other and one helps the other?
Yeah, so I've been doing massage on and off for 14 years, and also I'm an esthetician doing skincare, and I've been practicing yoga for a long time. So I think my writing was always based in wellness and taking care of yourself and your body. And so that's when I began to write for myself. That's kind of what I wrote about, and it began to get a little deeper over time. So yeah, I think they are very much related. A lot of times, I think that that sort of healing work, when we learn about our bodies, we learn about the world, we learn about ourselves, we learn about ourselves and the world. So it's all interrelated. Absolutely.
Now, is there any other downside than the physical wrist hurting or kind of getting lost in that world that you can think of?
Sometimes I want to step away from it as far as sharing it. I'm not going to at this point, but sometimes it feels a little raw and I don't want to look at it. Uh, I'm not sure what the psychology of that is. It's just that sometimes you feel a little too open and vulnerable, so you'd like to take a few weeks off.
Well,
And
we all deserve that. It
yeah,
is there any poetry you would like to share?
um, sure, I can share some poetry for sure. Let me find something. Hold on. Sorry, I wasn't ready. I get shy really reading my own poetry, but
You have such a beautiful presence in your voice, so I
thank
can't
you.
I can't wait to hear it. You know, it's like when you read poetry, sometimes you can hear the voice and your voice comes through. Literally, I can hear
Oh,
you reading it.
thank you. You're so sweet. Um, all right. So this goes back to a question that you asked me, what inspires me, and this was just something I wrote last week and I put it out there. They ask what inspires you, too much or not enough, or the taste of syrup, or the curve of a hip, or 100 unseen doors. The sound of a train ripping through silence, swallowing all unknowns, rooftops and beliefs, and those once quieted words, words that belonged between you and them, words that never landed, words that needed a home. So that's one poem.
Now, do you have titles to them, or are they
I
just
don't. No, I
they're
don't.
just slivers of time?
They're just little slivers of time. That's exactly what they are. They're just in the
Because
moment flow,
and
basically.
it's interesting for me. It's like this morning I saw a photo and it just inspired me instantly in that moment.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like at times that's the way you are. It's just like something just triggers and you just the muses come through and just flow through you so beautifully.
Thank you. It is instant when it happens. I often have to pull over to parking lots and step to the side when I'm talking to someone and say, hold on one second. Because it does feel like a flowing sensation. It's
Yes.
really nice. It's a really nice sensation. It is the flow, basically. Whenever we're in a state of doing something that we really enjoy and the time flies, it's that state, really blissful.
So there isn't one time that it's more so than others. Like for me, I think I'm more in the flow when it's early in the morning or in the morning or late night.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just it can hit me at any time, but generally the early morning really is a time that I seem to just it pours out.
Yes, absolutely. I think all through the night, which is really not convenient at all, but during the night and early morning. The afternoon is probably my quieter time, writing
Hmm.
wise, but
Yeah.
I At night is when the creative energy comes full force. I think that happens probably with all of us. Nighttime is when things feel a little bit deeper.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that and there's been times even when I have been meditating and I always for some reason got in the habit of keeping paper near me. And there's been several times when I come out of my meditation and I've written something down.
yeah,
I have no memory of writing it, but it's like, wow, that's really
yeah,
nice.
exercise. I think that exercise and writing are so linked, particularly yoga, because you're moving through things. You're moving everything, and it's like the flow right there. And then once you're moving your body,
Hmm.
everything comes up and you're able to think clearly. And I think the writing is more flow like. You're no longer stagnant with creative energy.
Exactly. So, do you have any suggestions for people who are thinking they've started their journaling and they think they really have a knack for poetry? Do you have any suggestions for anyone listening who's interested in writing poetry?
Yes, I would say read all the time, all day. And if there are certain poets you love, keep reading their poetry over and over. Because if you appreciate the rhythm of someone else's poetry, or take four poets that you love, and if you constantly read their poetry and have it going through your system, you pick up on the rhythms. So I don't even own a TV. And in all my free time, I'm reading poetry, even if it's the same poetry over and over. I see it as my practice. Or also, I'll find writers that I just really love the way they construct words or the way their words flow, because I look at it as music, especially poetry. But there are just really great lyrical writers out there. And if you constantly have that moving through you, then it's easier to write poetry yourself.
And with that being said, who are some of your favorite poets?
Oh, I love Anaïs Nin, Henry Miller. I love Vonnegut. I see him as a poet. I love Kerouac. Mary Oliver. She's a really beautiful poet.
Yes.
There's so so many. Yeah, I love the way she writes about nature. I love. Oh gosh, I just drew a blank. But there there are so many writers that I admire. So much. Catherine Valente. I love her words. She's not a poet, but they're very lyrical. Her words.
What do you plan on putting more books out? Are you, I mean, is there anything in the works right now for you? Because you have a one book out, don't you?
Yes, Edge of Wonder came out in November.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's just a collection of my of some of my poems, and I have enough material basically right now for probably 6 books. So right now I'm putting the second one together. It should be out later this year. And I think for now I'll stick with these poem and quote collections because that's what I've been writing.
Right.
And maybe later on get more into short stories.
Can you read us something from your book?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me find a popular one.
It doesn't have to be a popular one. It could be anything.
Okay, so I this one is sort of about small talk.
Okay?
Cheryl makes small talk, chit chat, discuss the ins and outs of a typical day, pass the time lightly, say tiny things. I'm happy to tread surfaces with a smile and will sometimes. Yet when I look at you, I know there are layers, dimensions, collections of ancient wisdom, roads, stories on stories on stories, core needs, humanness. This is where I light up. This is where I thrive. You can't be caged in a pool for long, not when you're someone who wants oceans.
And in many ways, you are an ocean of words.
Thank you. Sometimes I feel like I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, you're more like a galaxy. I think the ocean is far too small.
Thank you. I have to apologize all the time to friends for the massive amount of text messages I'll send in a 20-minute period. I can never stop. I often feel like I'm annoying people, but
I don't,
it's
s-
I am.
I don't see how, anybody who would wake up to one of your, little snippets, as I would call them, they're like little inspirations. I wouldn't. I would, there's a business right there you could start and send that out to many, many people and make some money off of that. I mean,
Thank
that way you wouldn't even have to. You could even just take some of your poetry and put it in an app and sell the app.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Thank you. I'm laughing because I think there are a few people I drive crazy.
Well, that those are the really good friends.
Thank you for that.
This year is one of those years of completion. So is
Yes.
there anything, is the completion of your second book your goal, the year?
Yes, I think that I want to sort of write to the more terrified versions of myself. I often do that, but I want to get make the writing a little deeper. I tend to stay in a specific genre for this audience, but I would like to explore a few other genres and not play it as safe as I've been. So sort of expand in those directions, more short stories and things like that. Just really play around with the words a little more and see how people like that. I think is my goal for this year.
So
And also the book. Yeah.
does it what genre really terrifies you?
I'm not sure yet. I just know there's something more that I feel coming. I think it's more about writing to the more terrified versions of myself, writing more about fear than I have been. Because sometimes I feel like a hypocrite. But often I'm usually talking to myself when I write quotes. I mean, we all go through the same things. So,
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that everybody can relate with
yeah.
your words. It's like she know, and you often put it right at the right time for so many people.
Thank you. It's strange that how that happens. I'll feel it really strongly and then it'll just come out. It's so funny though, because my dad told me a couple weeks ago, he was like, "Why don't you listen to your own poetry?" And I'm like, "Well, that's why I have to write to myself."
You and Carolyn Recker always seem to just hit a chord with so many
Oh, I
people.
adore her. Yeah, I adore her. She's so sweet. Yeah,
Um,
she
she,
does.
she
She does.
really, and she does show a vulnerability and shows her fear, and she just really is so grounded at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and and your work is very, very grounded, and I think that's what I appreciated. You may be in the world of words, but your words are very grounded and very reality based.
Thank you. Yes, they have to be because I am grounded. I can't be flying all the time. Basically, you have to stay grounded. I mean, we're here on this earth plane. And
Exactly.
it's the only
Ex-
way we'll get anything done. Need
so
the ground. Hmm.
so what is your website so people who are interested in reading more of your words, or how can people connect to you and get more flavor from your words?
The website I'm about to completely redo. I've been largely ignoring that, mainly because I don't like technical type things and I always want to be writing poetry. But the best way right now is Instagram, Victoria1031, and Facebook, which is Victoria Erickson Writer. And if they want to check out my book, Edge of Wonder, that's on Amazon and it's in Barnes and Noble and it's on barnesandnoble.com and it can also be ordered through any indie bookstore through Ingram distributors.
And
So,
awesome. Awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
So, with this, I thank you very much, Victoria Erickson, for taking a moment out of your world wonder, um, for speaking with us on air about poetry. And you just inspire me. You really do. And you make me appreciate poetry and poets even more so. So, I thank you so much for being on air.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm honored to be on. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
And with that, this is Jennifer Hillman saying, with each breath of air, we hope you gain new insights, imagination, and inspiration. Till next time, have a great week.